So if I could be seen as the cool girl that would be loud and a little bit obnoxious and be rude to the teachers and stuff like that, then people wouldn't see me as the girl with one leg.
My sister hates the fact that she constantly refers to as Charlie's sister.
You know that I was on Eurovision last year. I hadn't washed for a week. I absolutely stank. I was sweaty. All I wanted to do was just collapse and, I don't know, have a beer. Do you know what I mean? Views were incredible. However, being higher than the aeroplanes. Think about that. If you'd have said to me 10 years ago, oh, you're going to be playing amputee football for England, I would literally say, absolutely not football. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God, what the hell is happening?
Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Rebecca with us. Rebecca, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Hey guys, my name's Rebecca Legon and I'm a amputee model and influencer, and I'm also playing amputee football for England.
I am so excited for this. As you can tell from the intro, I'm very excited about this conversation because there's so much we can talk about. So first things, I always ask my guests what their journey has been this far. Just to give a bit of context to anyone that doesn't know you, what has your journey been this far to sort of where you are today in sort of a snapshot?
So I was born in the 80s with limb difference. It was a condition where my leg didn't grow properly in early fetal development. And I had an amputation at 6 years old, which gave me a prosthetic limb, which enabled me to be more mobile. As before, my first prosthetic was like a wooden type peg leg, I suppose. So it was really impractical. It didn't bend. You know, I'd get in a car and my leg would be sticking down the side and everything. So yeah, that kind of started me out on my journey and enabled me to be more active and physically fit as a child. In my early years, I was very confident and was always, you know, partaking in sports days and was obviously particularly very good at the sack race, you know, because you like hopping. Always smash that one. Take my leg off to do that. In my later teens, when I started really noticing that I was different to everybody else, is when my kind of like darker sort of thoughts sort of came on growing up, and I would start getting, you know, insecurities about feeling different and, you know, why did this happen to me and not my friends or not anybody else. And it's not a nice thing to think that you thought like that, but I guess I had to go through that process to accept myself. I was always really, really popular, so all these thoughts were really external, and it was a lot of issues that I was dealing internally. And in my later teens, I did a lot of traveling and went to Australia for a year. And in my early 20s, I lived in America for about 3.5 years as well.
Wow.
Came back, I know there's so much. Came back and I went on a TV show, one of the first disability-related model shows. It was called Britain's Missing Next Top Model, and did that, which then led me into starting a magazine in Manchester. I did that for 10 years. met my children's father and moved to East Sussex, had my children, and we're no longer together. However, from then I hiked Kilimanjaro, and I did that, which opened up so many doors and opportunities for myself personally and professionally. I started working for a limb loss charity and did lots of amazing things, and I'm now working for Autobock. So this is where I'm at now in a brief.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what I wanted, because it gives us an idea of like who you are as a person, what you've been through, what your journey was like, and then I get to dive in a little bit more into each part of it. First thing I wanted to ask you, sort of off the back of what you've just explained. Obviously, you growing up, you said that obviously you were considered very popular, like you got on really well with people, but you still had that level of insecurity going around in your head, going, I'm still different to everyone else. How did that present when you were younger? Because obviously, there's very different ways it presents, and obviously very different experiences in terms of how your school experience impacts that. So I just wanted you to expand on that, if that's
You know
okay.
what? That is a really, really good question, because for me, my way of I was always very, very good academically when I was younger. And when I got into high school, my insecurities of feeling different, in a way, masking those, I would misbehave in school. So if I could be seen as the cool girl that would be loud and a little bit obnoxious and be rude to the teachers and stuff like that, then people wouldn't see me as the girl with one leg. And I never realized that was what I was doing until I became older and analyzed it, because when I was at school, it was in the 90s and we didn't have that kind of support, and I went to a school where I was the only person with a disability, and that's how I handled that, really.
It's really interesting because it's very similar to me. Like mine, I always say that, like, because people will see me as the loud one, always cracking jokes, always the first person to take the mick out of their own disability. But then I realized as I got older, I mean, I'm never going to stop doing that because it's hilarious. But I realized that was a coping mechanism for me, because it was that whole thought process of, if I take the piss out of myself before someone else gets the opportunity to, then it's not as big of a deal. And that was something that I realized as I sort of went through, because I was always the loud one. Everyone knew me. Being ginger, I stuck out like a sore thumb. I was everyone's, like, I got on with everyone. I think the other thing as well, as a disabled person, you become quite a very good communicator, because you have to explain what support you need and what your condition is and X, Y, Z. So you naturally have that skill, but then there's this whole masking element of getting to a point where you accept it.
Yeah, and I think masking comes in all different, forms, doesn't it? And obviously I wanted to mask the fact that I was the girl with one leg. And so you kind of put up a barrier, don't you? And try and stop being known for that. You want to be, especially when you're younger, like, I don't care now if people know me as the girl with one leg. But when you're younger, you go through all these strange, hormonal insecurities, don't you?
100%. And I think as well, like, I always say, my sister always gets really annoyed because of being a wheelchair user and being, as I say, sticking out quite a bit. My sister hates the fact that she constantly refers to as Charlie's sister, because everyone knows me, but no one seems to remember her name, and it drives her nuts. Absolutely drives her nuts.
I love that. She's like, hello, I'm here.
The first thing is, she's older than me as well, so she's the original.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I bet she loves being your big sister, though.
Yeah, it's weird. Like we've talked about it before, and I think the reason why we have quite a strong relationship is because there's 6 years between us, so there's a big old gap between us, and also, like, oftentimes I was the little brother where Mum was like, "You're going out, take your brother with you." So yeah.
She's like, no, I don't want to. It's so annoying. Or was she okay?
It depends what day you caught her on. Some days absolutely fine. Other days couldn't stand the sight of me. But then the other thing as well is I got terrorized because I couldn't run away. So I went to the amount of physio appointments I went to with pink nails. It was all going on. It was fun.
You were her muse.
Yeah, basically, I was into cheap entertainment. That's what I was.
Exactly, her entertainment and her muse. I love it.
So you touched on briefly there that you've not too recently, but fairly recently, climbed Kilimanjaro. Can you talk us through how that all came about? Of, like, yeah, where did the thought pop into your head? Where did it all go from there? What was the journey like? I feel like there's so many questions in that bit.
Yeah, well, at the time, I was featured in a article in a magazine or a newspaper. I can't remember which now. And someone reached out to me. His name was Damien Harper, and he related to the article because it was talking about a lot of, your younger years dealing with insecurities and drinking, whilst out to give you the confidence to, feel that you can like fit in and stand out.
Yeah.
And we got chatting, and he was actually booked to climb Kilimanjaro with Limb Power Charity, which is the charity that I worked for. And we were chatting, and he put the idea basically into my head. And at the time, I've always been active and loved hiking. I do a lot of hiking around the Ashdown Forest and the South Downs. And I just thought, well, I've always wanted to do something for charity and, just give something amazing a go. And that was the inspiration behind it. However, at that time, I was probably having one of my darkest moments, because it was the time period that me and the children's father were separating, and he was really, really unsupportive of it and didn't want me to go. And I almost cancelled it, which is crazy, because if I had cancelled it, my whole life would be completely different now. I don't think I would have done or met or achieved or be in the same positions. And it's bonkers. Sometimes you have two doorways, don't you? And you either go down one or the other. And that was that moment in life for me. Yeah. So obviously for me, I'm so pleased that I, stuck to my guns and continued on with it. And it was just the most remarkable experience of my life. I can't really explain it other than you're in this bubble of, you're on the mountain, you're on Kilimanjaro, you're just walking around it. You spend a week up there. So you basically camp on the mountain and you walk around it each day just to acclimatize to the altitude and get yourself used to it and everything. And in those moments, it was just really good fun. We were actually a group of amputees and others as well who weren't amputees. And it was great. Not everybody managed to, complete it or to get to the top. I was one of the amputees that did. And I was also the only amputee to walk the 29 kilometres back on the last day as well. So wow. I was really, really proud of myself. And at the end, the government had organised there was lots of people from the disability government departments at the bottom, and they'd organised the TV crew and loads of people, like a party. So literally, as soon as I walked through, because I was the last one, because most people came down in a Jeep, there was this big, massive party going on. It was really surreal. It was really cool, though. But I love that. Great event.
Love that, like the idea of like you're sweating, climbing down this mountain, thinking, "Thank God it's nearly over," because of the amount of steps you've done. And, and there's just this film crew going, "So how was it? How did everything go?"
It was honestly, you've just painted the whole picture of it. I could even like share you the video because it's online. That is exactly it. I hadn't washed for a week. I absolutely stank. I was sweaty. All I wanted to do was just collapse and, I don't know, have a beer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these questions, and it was just like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? But yeah, it was really cool, really good fun.
I love the idea as well, having to go into TV mode, because anyone that does anything on social media, and a lot of us, we are ourselves, but what you see on TV is definitely an exaggerated version. So I just got this image of you being like, right, I've got to turn on TV Rebecca now rather than...
Yeah. And I looked absolutely disgusting as well. And like people were coming up to me and like I was just thinking, oh my God, don't touch me, don't come near me. I must stink. But yeah, it was really cool. And then they were asking me lots of questions. It was a very surreal moment, but it was great.
I can imagine. If I rewind a little bit, what did you do before it? Like training wise, what do you do? Like obviously when you do sport, there's certain training that you just do every day, but like Kilimanjaro is a bit of a different beast.
Yeah, it is. It was a huge challenge. Training for it, literally, I just spent a lot of time going on hikes. Where I live, near the Ashdown Forest, there's lots of, up and downhill parts, which is the ground is very uneven and it's quite a tricky trek to sort of do. So I just spent a lot of time going out, carrying a backpack and just walking around the forest for like 2 hours, and building up strength like that. I tend to keep myself quite physically fit anyway. Yeah. However, I did put a lot of extra effort into it. But
I imagine it. Because it's really long-winded as well. It's really like you say, there's a full week of just intent. Like it sounds like obviously you can sort of take it at your own pace to an extent, but it's just relentless. I mean, I can imagine as well. It's one of them things where day 3 rolls around and you think, Jesus Christ, there's so much left to go.
Can we not just do it now? Do you know what I mean? It's like, we have to just keep plodding around. The thing is that while you're on the mountain, it wasn't actually that difficult because you have to walk or move so slowly because you're so high up. You can't like exert your body too much and go into too much of a physical activity mode because you need to be like relaxed. And so that was okay. However, the altitude sickness was awful. And I saw so many people get it. They were fine 1 minute and then all of a sudden they were just so ill they couldn't do anything. You would walk past people who were just like lying on the floor, like literally because they'd been attacked by it. So that was the most scary thing, was wondering if you were going to be next. It was like a hidden plague or something. Am I going to get attacked by the altitude sickness and go down? Do you know what I mean? Because when you go down, you're done. It's really scary.
Because as well, I'd imagine it's almost like when you get food poisoning. It's like you never know when it's going to get you, and it just hits you, and that's it. Game over. Yeah,
exactly. It is totally like that, and a lot of the people, I just felt so sorry for them. I was just like, oh my God, but at the same time was like, oh, thank fuck it's not me. Do you know what I mean?
What like, is there anything you had to consider from an amputee perspective? Because like obviously it's a lot of pressure on your prosthetic, it's a lot of pressure on the joint. It gets sweaty, everything's involved. So like, is there any like special considerations you had to make being an amputee?
Yeah, well, because myself and then the lady that I shared a tent with, Kira, we're both amputees, and we both wear microprocessor knees, which means at night you have to charge your legs. So like you charge your phone every night. I have to charge my leg. So on Kilimanjaro, obviously there's no electricity. So luckily somebody that we knew who was a prosthetist designed like a battery operated charging device. However, in extreme conditions, the charge on the leg was running out so much quicker. So on the night of summit, we would, those hand warmers that you would stick into your glove, we were sticking those on our prosthetic legs and just like doing everything. We'd put the legs in between us and like cover, like, when we were sleeping at night and everything, just trying to reserve as much battery. That's really crazy because I've only just thought about that as you asked me that question.
It's mad, like these little things that you have to consider. I mean, like as well, is it a system where if it runs out of charge, that's it? it's really
No,
hard to work with.
it's not that bad actually, and it did on summit night. So obviously you get to the top and then you have to come down. It ran out on the final leg. There wasn't that much to go, and what it meant is that it walks on a really stiff knee. But coming down, that kind of worked to an advantage because it has resistance going against you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad, so it was all right.
Was there any, like, because you hear a lot of people coming down with like blisters, chafing? Was there a lot of that going on?
Yeah, there was a lot of blisters. You know, a couple of the people, you know, one guy, his leg had seized up, and you know, there was a lot of, you know, issues with that. Yeah, tiredness.
I just think, and as well, like I'm thinking food wise as well, because you're on the go for a long old day. Getting food and hydrating mustn't be that easy either.
You know what? You go on like a tour package, so you're really looked after, and you have a team looking after you with people that help carry all the equipment and the tents and the food. So it's kind of like a catered expedition. It's
cool.
not like going out on your own.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yourself. You have to have it guided and everything as well. So you have guides that support and look after you. And they really did look after us extremely well because it's so important to stay hydrated and obviously fed on those kind of tracks, because you're you're using so much energy, even though you know you're taking it like it is really difficult, don't get me wrong, but it's before the summit night you do kind of take it more easy around the mountain, and then on the summit night it is really challenging.
I think the other thing as well is it's important to remember, like, it's not something where it's not like a sprint where you got to beat the person in front of you. It's a marathon, and it's that whole aspect of like when someone says, "Oh, I took it slow," it sounds lazy, but then I'm like, no, like you still did it. Like there's nothing, still very impressive.
Yeah. Well, some of the guides tell us stories about, you know, you get typically, I don't want to sort of like pinpoint this on any particular person or anything like that, but he was saying, you know, that they said a couple of stories. There was typically a couple of rugby players that had gone on, and they were like, we're super strong, we're gonna like run around, we're gonna jump up on top of the rocks and take loads of pictures, and that they were saying, hey, you really need to slow down and take it easy, because, you know, you could get, oh, we're not going to get ill. We're, you know, really strong and great. Yeah. We're going to smash this. We're so physically fit. And, not too long after that, they were taken down with altitude sickness because, you know, it's a completely different environment up there, and you can't behave or act like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, some people do go up there with that attitude.
What was the thing that surprised you most about doing Kilimanjaro?
Probably how difficult it is when you're at the top on that high altitude. I remember once you get to the top, you have different points to get to the highest point, and you basically have to walk around the rim. So you're on the rim of the Kilimanjaro volcano crevice, so to speak, and you can see all the way down into the center, which is really scary. But when you're up there, you're so high up, you literally can hardly move. It's such hard work. And there were so many occasions when I was like, I can't do this. Have I got altitude sickness? And my guide was like, look at me. No, you're fine. Keep moving. I was like, quickly, can't move. It was crazy. Like a little bit like how you would, not imagine space to be. But yeah, it was just a completely different sort of experience that I've ever had before.
Is it like do you have like a time, like I'm thinking with your guides, do they go, right, Rebecca, you can't stay at the summit for longer than 2 minutes, otherwise you're going to have problems?
Yeah, you literally, you can't, because as soon as you've done it, you want to sit down and just relax. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
you can't sit and relax here. You've got to get back down. Because the final bit is when you summit it, you go up that extra couple of thousand. I don't know how high it is, but it's quite extreme for your body. So you get to the top and you just like want to stop and relax. And it's not good to do that. So even though you feel like physically drained and exhausted, you're made to keep going. But yeah,
that's mad. Like as you say, it's that whole thing of, it's like when you finish a marathon, you just want to sit down, and they're like, no, you got to keep going, keep going.
I know. The one crazy thing actually, which I've just remembered, which took my breath away, is obviously the views were incredible. However, being higher than the aeroplanes. Think about that.
Yeah, that would mess me up.
At the aeroplanes going, and we were like camping and eating dinner, and we could see the clouds all below us. It was so
That's
surreal.
crazy.
Yeah.
Is it almost like you know when you pass the clouds on a flight? Does it feel like that? You know, and like it just looks like a bunch of marshmallows.
Well, the clouds weren't like that there, but you were literally above the clouds. You could see them, and you could see the aeroplanes, and it was really surreal because you would feel if you could see something from that height, you'd be on something small, and you wouldn't feel like you were on a land surface. But because Kilimanjaro is so big, you're that high up, but you're on ground level. It's just a weird thing to get your head around. It's like, well, I feel like I'm on land, because it's so big, but I'm in the air. It doesn't make any sense. You feel like you need to see like a drop off cliff, but you don't see that,
That's mad. It must be such a psychological, like, not illusion, but must feel so much like this can't be real.
Yeah, it is. And it's like you go through different landscapes as well. You start off at the beginning sort of like with green and trees and lush forests with monkeys and things like that. And then the further you go up, it becomes more and more barren. And then at the final parts, you go through a desert. And then it's it's just like sand. And then you go and even further up, you've got the ice caps and everything. But unfortunately, they're melting due to...
It must be mad as well, clothing-wise, what to take. I was just thinking, like, if you're going through all those different extremes, clothing-wise, you must be like, 1 minute it's like jacket on, jacket off, jacket on, jacket.
Yeah, it's like that. We were really, really fortunate to have good weather on our side, because I've spoken to other people that have done it in snowstorms and everything. And
wow,
you have to literally be prepared for any weather. It could be absolutely raining, it could be dry, it could be a blizzard, it could be a snowstorm, it could be anything. And it can change instantly as well. So you have to make sure you're prepared for everything.
I don't know how I'd feel about a snowstorm. I don't know whether I don't think I can manage.
Honestly, I don't know if I could have done. The person I was speaking to and the snowstorm that they were involved in, I don't know if I could have done it in a snowstorm, if I'm honest with you. It sounded horrendous. I'm sure once you're in it, you kind of just get on with it and give it your all. And I'm sure I would.
You can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Changing topic completely. So you've also co-founded a magazine.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
Okay, so my one of my best friends ever from Bournemouth, she bought a franchise for a magazine called Deviate, and after I was in the Britain's Missing Next Top Model TV program, she contacted me and said, "Hey, I've moved to Manchester. Do you want to? I've started this magazine. I've bought this franchise for this magazine, and I don't know what to do. I need some help. Will you come and be my business partner?" And currently, at the time, I was working for a construction company on reception, and I was the worst receptionist ever. So I was like, Yeah, why not? This sounds exciting. So I moved to Manchester and we actually scrapped the franchise and decided to create something different, which was called Viva Manchester. Managed to build it up into something pretty, one of the most known publications in Manchester, both printed and digitally. We also had lots of PR contacts and stuff. So we used to have lots of parties, and there was this hotel called the Light Boutique, and it had houses with hot tubs and everything. So we had the likes of Howard Marks, who's not with us anymore. He did a lot of our events, and Fun Loving Criminals have come up and played as well. And yeah, it was it was really, really cool times, and it was great. And we both ventured on into different areas. She's now living in Dubai and is a DJ, and I moved to East Sussex and had children and everything. So we sold it to a PR contact, and it's still going today. It's online. So yeah, it was cool.
What was it like making the decision to scrap the franchise? Because obviously both of you, from the sounds of it, kind of were in at the deep end, and it was it would have been seen as like a very big call to go, do you know what, let's scrap this and start again and see where it goes.
We didn't scrap it like right at the start, but we wanted to make so many changes that would suit Manchester, and it just wasn't working as well within the city. And they were the guy that owned the franchise, he was quite negatively supportive on the changes that we wanted to make. And so we sort of just decided that we would sort of recreate it into Viva, and we walked away from the franchise.
That's mad, because I sit there and think, if he sold it to you, that being horrible, it's nothing to do with him. So like,
I know. It was really silly of him not to. The franchise was called DV8, and we decided to change it to Viva Manchester. But it was hard. DV8 was more of a clubbing type magazine of going out, pictures of people in clubs, and it was still around lifestyle and everything. But we just felt that it didn't, relate so much to Mancunian lifestyle. So that's why we did Viva.
Also, like I always find the world of magazines quite unusual, because I was never into it. I don't think there's ever been a magazine where I've gone, I read that. So I don't, to me, the whole world of magazines, I'm like, how does it all work? Like,
you know what? It was a huge amount of fun. We didn't, to be honest, make a lot of money from it, but we did get a huge amount of perks. So I would imagine social media wasn't so big back then when we did it. And we would get to, I would imagine a lot of huge influencers get these perks now from social media. So, for example, we would go do travel reviews. So we'd go away and get free holidays, free flights, free upgrade, all with airlines, and then we'd feature it in the magazine. We'd go to cover events. We'd go cover live music gigs. We'd go do restaurant reviews. So in theory, our hair, everything, beauty, clothes, review shoes, review fashion stuff, we literally got everything for free. However, the publication made money from advertising. So we obviously managed to make our costs and pay our salesperson. But we didn't financially make like loads of money from it. But we had so much fun, and it was absolutely amazing. So.
What was your biggest highlight?
My biggest highlight was when we surprised our friend Gemma in Australia for her 30th birthday party, and we arranged a feature, and we did a feature traveling Australia penthouse style. So there was one where we met her on absolutely amazing. There was this one penthouse in Coolangatta, and it was really, really high, and it was 2 stories, and it had its own swimming pool, and it was absolutely incredible. Probably actually is the most amazing place I've ever stayed in. And she didn't know she was coming. However, she was getting really kind of suspicious because her husband, who we're also really good friends with, we'd been arranging it with him. And he came to
Yeah.
meet us in Brisbane, where we flew into, and we'd arranged a 2-night penthouse there as well. So he came to stay for one of the nights, the night before all meeting, and she was calling, getting really suspicious and everything. But yeah, one of the most amazing moments, but personal moments, was when seeing her come in and we were all waiting in this penthouse for her to turn up.
That's amazing.
Like, surprise!
I'm also like, what a big surprise. Like, that's...
I know.
I've heard some surprises, but that's quite a big one. Do you know what? We're going to fly halfway across the world, rent a penthouse, and here I am.
I know, and we organised it all. It was incredible, and all her friends from Australia were there, and then Stuart, obviously her husband, and she was like, "Oh my God, I thought you were being I thought you were having an affair or something. You were being so weird." But yeah, no, that was really, really cool.
Did you have the moment of sitting, like, I always, every so often when you have those moments, I often have that moment of you sit there and go, how the hell did we end up here?
Yeah. I've had those moments quite a lot. Yeah, exactly.
What was your hardest moment with the magazine?
Oh, probably letting it go, because it wasn't really fitting into our lifestyles anymore. And, we'd created and built this baby, so to speak, and we loved it. And it was that letting it go and finally realizing when, all the saying, all good things must come to an end. It was that moment that was probably the hardest. Other areas, there was a lot of stress when it came to, making a budget for print and things like that. We had an amazing time, but there was also a lot of hard work that went into getting it to what it was, So, yeah.
Jumping back a bit, because we didn't touch on it, can you tell us a bit more about how you ended up modelling?
Modelling. Okay, so I stumbled into this, as I do with most things in my life. It just kind of happens. And it was mainly the TV show that I was in, Britain's Missing Next Top Model. After that, I was then approached by an inclusive modelling agency, and I was with them for a while and did a couple of campaigns and stuff like that. It was great. And then it wasn't until it kind of resumed after my children. So I had my children, and then I joined Zebedee Management, and I've, been lucky enough to work with some fantastic campaigns and brands, and it's all positive. It's great to show inclusivity, isn't it, within the fashion industry and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy it. If I could do modelling all the time, the feeling of just going on set, getting your hair and makeup done, and it's an incredible feeling. It's so much fun.
I think that's often the misconception with anyone that does sort of creative stuff, whether it be doing the social media stuff or doing the modelling or whatever that might be, is everyone sort of sees it as like, that's our career, whereas a good 20% of them, it is their career, but a good 80%, we're running around like headless chickens trying to make everything work.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like you're working your other job, and then a modelling job comes up, and then you're like, oh my God, how do I fit in both? And then you're running around even more, and you're like, oh my God, it's bonkers.
Because the craziest thing is you don't want to turn it down.
No.
But then you're also like, you can't keep saying yes to everything, because otherwise you'll just drive yourself mad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know.
It's also the other thing though is like what I like with the modelling space, it's becoming more inclusive, is it's helping people with their body confidence. Because I feel like particularly in the disability space, there's a lot surrounding confidence in your own appearance or confidence in your own self. Because I always say, like, really, for me to fully accept my disability, it took me till I was about 16, 17 before I went, do you know what? Like, I've never really, obviously, I knew I couldn't hand my disability back, and I never really had a massive issue with it. But to be fully confident with your situation, that's quite a hard thing to wrap your head around as a young person. So it's really nice to see that changing slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the modelling did help me to, with the world becoming more inclusive and showing other people out there, with disabilities and differences and everything, it kind of makes you feel not so alone. And then you feel more accepting of yourself as well. And for my self-acceptance journey, it's only recently happened since I started, my social media, which is probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'd always had some, insecurities with myself, but it's just, once, and I try to sort of let people, we're all different and we should all be uniquely celebrated. But once you can't love yourself for who you are, you're never gonna grow as an individual, and you always have to, and it's really hard, you can't take that next step until you accept yourself. And that's with anything, any visual or non-visual difference. So many people really struggle with something, and it may not even mean they have a disability. It may just be something that they're really unhappy with, but once you accept that as part of you, then you can be, you can be truly happy once you finally let it go. But that is the hardest thing for someone to get to that point. And I've only just got there. So, it's fucking hard. And it's a mega journey, ups and downs.
It's also that whole thing of, like, people ask me all the time, like, how did you get to that point? And I always say to people, but the thing is, like, it's not a constant here. It's majority of time here. You'll still drop down. It will still happen, but you spend the majority of time where you want to be. But then the other thing as well is, like, trying to advise someone to be like, this is how you get to this place quicker than I did. That's really tricky because I'm not inside your head. I don't know what's going on inside there.
Exactly. And I think, the only way that anyone's going to achieve that is themselves. No one can say, you've got to do it this way, or this worked for me, because whatever worked for that person is individual to them. However, I do feel, with there being more inclusivity out there, not enough as far as I'm concerned. We can discuss certain areas of brands booking, models with disabilities, but then they're not actually selling products that are actually adapted for those with disabilities. So it's still, we've got a long way to go. However, it is going in the right direction. And I think it does help, the younger generation who are growing up. It gives them sort of role models, and, the more awareness around, the world and the people that live within it, that, being different is, normal, so to speak. Not everyone is the same. If we were all the same, it would be terrible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's very helpful, and I am proud that I can play some of my part, being included in some of it.
I think you hit on a very big point, though, because we're seeing now, you've worked with brands, I've worked with brands, and I think one of the hardest things as someone that is in that space where you work with and support them, what you see is you often see that brands, there's two types of brands. There's the ones that genuinely want to make their stuff more inclusive and want to represent all of the community. And then you have the ones going, so-and-so business have done it and it's really trendy, so we're going to do it because we want to look good. And that's really hard, because on the flip side, because I had a discussion with another person that does a lot of work with brand stuff, and we had a discussion of should you work with a brand that is doing it for the tokenism, or should you not? But then he's like, but then also from their perspective, it was, but I'm also showing them that I can play the system and get better representation from the inside than what I would have if I didn't take the job. And it was a really interesting
Yeah,
thought that I was like, actually, you've got a very good point. Like, you're like, okay, yeah, you're working with this brand that isn't great, but then you can start opening the conversation and start
yeah,
being like, actually, you should be
exactly.
doing this.
And you know what? Maybe they're not quite, adapting their stuff for everyone. However, they've got to start somewhere. And if that
Yeah.
start is just showing inclusivity by booking a disabled model, then they can only do better from that one point,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Whereas if you don't, then there's no point for them to step from, or if that makes sense.
100%. And like, it's something I bang on all the time because my belief system is very much of the case of like, I find it really tricky with how nuanced the disabled community can be for people, because then it makes anyone that's not educated in that space, it makes it very difficult for them to enter it because they're scared of saying something wrong or they're
Yeah,
scared of offending someone. And I think the trick is, don't get me wrong, if someone's downright offensive, 100% should be pulled up
yeah,
on it, but allow people to make mistakes, because mistakes are how people learn. And to be honest, even from
100%.
like a professional side of things, the royal fuck ups that I've made are the ones that I remember and go, won't do that again.
No, absolutely. And that is so true for me as well. You know what? Like, I have done so many things that are wrong, but you can only ever learn. And it is
Yeah,
normally the things that you do really badly is that you're like, and you don't do it again.
yeah,
You have to do it to not do it, if that means you have to put
exactly.
yourself into shame and embarrassment to never go back there again.
I think it's because it cements it in your head. You're like, right,
Yeah.
I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
um, on the topic of like, obviously trying to make the world more inclusive and then trying to support young people that are on their journey with their disability or difference, what advice would you give to your younger self or someone in a similar situation that you wish you had?
Oh, I would just love to just have, been really happy to be myself and, not. I would have liked to have accepted myself for who I am a lot
Yeah,
sooner so that I didn't have to live my life with always, the things that I did. At some points in my life, I would drink a lot of alcohol because that would make me feel like drinking alcohol could give me the confidence to feel like I can be the real me, when in actual fact, the real me's in there. I should have just done that myself. And that there were so many opportunities that I had, even when I did the magazine and I was living in Manchester. My business partner, she had a radio show, she was presenting on that, and she also got into acting, and she wanted to do all this kind of stuff with me. However, it sounds crazy now because it's all the things I'm doing now. I'm having acting lessons. Oh my God, it'd be amazing to have a radio show and stuff like that. However,
yeah,
it was that held me back. It was my insecure. And unless you're there and you understand it, it's quite hard to sort of know why I wouldn't have done it. But I
yeah,
just didn't feel that I wanted to put myself in that front position, standing up front of people, acting or being a host or anything. Like, I was always happy to be the sidekick, if that makes sense. My
yeah,
business partner was a very vibrant, and she is, crazy, fun, out there person. And I always sort of was happy just kind of sort of standing
yeah.
back and, whatever, still
Um,
having fun and everything. But I just, for me, I would just say, be comfortable in who you are and, do the things that you want to do. Don't make excuses and just go for them,
yeah. Yeah, it's like what I always say. It's like one question I always get, because obviously me and my partner Gina are very public online about our relationship, and the question is like, how do you go about dating? And one of the biggest things was accepting where you are because then it's that whole, I hate saying it, it's that whole, no one's going to love you till you love yourself. While I don't fully buy into that, I also do think like there's an element of like, if you're not comfortable within yourself, you're projecting that to someone else, which then makes it very hard for them to know how to approach you. And then it sets off a whole like catalyst effect of that's what the problem is. And that's not me saying like fix the problem now, but I think that's another problem we get with young people with differences. It's like just one of my favorite sayings, and I can't remember who said it to me, is we only regret the risks we didn't take.
Yes,
so
exactly
I
what
always
I was trying to say.
Yeah, I always think, like, especially now, as I was saying to Rebecca before we started, I have done a lot of thinking around career and what I want to do and what I enjoy. And one of the pieces of advice that I'd always want to give my younger self is, if there's something you want to do, go and try it. You might be shy at it, you might hate it, but at least you went and did it, and then you're going to thank yourself a lot later on going, it didn't quite work, but we had a laugh, it was a great memory, move on to the next thing. Because I think a guest that I've had on a couple of weeks ago talked about like kids being in school and like the system in school, and I think it got me thinking, like, so many things are just down to just try it, see how it goes, see what happens. And also then you'll also use another cliche, find yourself by doing that. It's like it's so cheesy. I hate saying it because but like
true. It is all true. That is the thing. I know it sounds so cheesy, but everything, that's what I was trying to say, but I was waffling on a little bit too much. But everything is true. I wish I'd found myself a lot sooner and did everything that I wanted to do, because I did really want to do these things, but for some reason I didn't. And that's what I just say to people, live your life for now and just, don't sweat about, don't even think about, whether you can do it or not, because you'll only regret it, as you say, later if you don't try.
But then I think just as a closing point on it, I think the other thing to remember is, like, although we're saying this, not jump straight into it and do it tomorrow. It's a case of like, you might already be on that path and you don't realize it. That's the worst thing. It's like, I'm not saying like you're going to know all the answers tomorrow. I don't know all the answers. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But like, also stop. I think one of the biggest things for young people, particularly when I think of like school age, like, just my utmost piece of advice: just chill out. Just chill. Things will happen, and they will just happen. And you just got to go with it.
Yeah, it's so hard though, because you don't really think the same when you're at school, do you? Because your hormones are all over the place. And, I can imagine me saying this to my daughter when she's older, but I know when I was in that teenager mode, if my mum said anything to me, she was stupid and just didn't get anything that I was saying, So it's really hard, but it's all very true.
And I think the other thing, definitely, and I think that's the worst thing is I'm only 25, and I now sit there and think, God, if I had the knowledge I had now, the different decisions I would make, God, and that could be quite a vicious cycle as well.
Yeah. Well, I wish that I had, accepted myself at 25. So that shows that I'm not even going to say how old I am. But it can only get better from that. Wow, it always is good, isn't it? But that's great.
But as we say, everyone's journeys are different.
Yeah.
But talking of pastures new and trying different stuff, so Amputee Football, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it's all really exciting at the moment because as we know, women's football is kicked off throughout the globe and everything. And now women's amputees football is to follow. And since November last year, we have a team. We have a team of incredible girls. We're a strong team as well. We all get on really well, and We all come from
Amazing.
different backgrounds. Some of us have played football before amputation, so understand,
Yep.
the strategy and the game, and
Yep.
are really, really understand all that, are really, really good. We've got a couple of players that also play for some of the Chelsea and
Yep.
the other one, but they play for those teams as well with the men. And we're going to be going to the World Cup representing England in November. So that is very exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what made you want to jump into amputee football?
Okay, so this is a bit of a crazy story. I don't know if you know that I was on Eurovision last year. Yeah, with Sam Ryder, like a load of amputees. We were on stage with him. One of the girls there was already in the team, and she talked me round to go into the trials in November last year. And I was thinking, oh my God, I don't really like football. I'm not a massive football person,
Yeah.
And she was like, come on, you've got to give it a go. It'll be amazing. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'll go to the trials, try it out. Why not? Give everything a go in life, so to speak.
100%.
And if only just go and see the girl, go see her, go hang out, that will be fun. However, when I went and we all got involved in the training, it was so much fun. Literally just fell in love with amputee football. The whole speed, the endurance, the tactileness of the game. And it's just, it was just super fun. And also, I'd never really been involved in a sport before, or even a team sport. So having that, team vibe, and us being a group, and it was just, it's a little bit like a family, so to speak. It's really hard to explain, but it's great.
But I think it comes back to that point we said earlier of like, try things, just try it and see. Like I've been very fortunate that I grew up in a very sporty-ish family, and like I was that kid that one minute I wanted to be a footballer, next minute I wanted to be a swimmer. That one I actually stuck at, to be fair. Next minute I wanted to be a horse rider, and but then I just tried different things, and also like all of them were amazing experiences, met amazing people. So like I think it's hard as well. If you're not into sport, you can be or like in terms of like supporting a team or supporting something like that, you're not inclined to go and try these things. But you might find a sport that you're either unusually good at it, or you unusually really enjoy it and you thought you didn't.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. And I feel like I'm getting pretty good at it. But I'm absolutely surprised at how much I love it, because if you'd have said to me 10 years ago, oh, you're going to be playing amputee football for England, I would literally say, shut up. Absolutely not football. Do you know what I mean? But I love it. And I love our team. I love our players. And I'm really, really excited to be going to the World Cup, and hopefully we can bring back gold. We'll bring back.
Yeah. Why not? Whereabouts is it being held?
It's going to be in Colombia.
Wow.
I know. So, excited.
Whoa. Yeah.
In November. As far as I know, dates still haven't been confirmed, but yeah.
Wow. I reckon your kids must be like, whoa, mum's doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah. My daughter's actually pretty good, actually. She's come on a training, and I think she has a little bit of natural talent going on. So maybe we have something running in the family.
Yeah. There's a secret gene that no one knew.
Yeah, future lioness.
And lastly, I ask every guest this question. What's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
Yes, well, What I do agree with is obviously us protecting the environment and being careful and doing our best that we can possibly can to prevent, the increasing of global warming and things like that. Recycling, being cautious of the things we buy, clothing, for example. I tell you what, and this is like when I was younger, I used to want to buy an outfit, every time I went out, everything
Yeah.
had to be new and I'd probably wear it a couple of times and then that would be it. It's so wasteful. So I'm really cautious of the things I buy. Do I need it? Do I want it really? Or am I just getting sucked into, global marketing tactics that always pull you in, don't they? You're like, oh, you need this handbag, or you need this, a pair of shoes. I do, I need it, but you don't. So, and I always go, yeah, I do need it. And so I'm trying not to be like that, And I tell you what, Kilimanjaro, when I did Kilimanjaro, and you see how happy the people are out there for such little what they have, you come back from that experience and you're like, wow, oh my God, I don't need this, I don't need that, I don't need that, because I literally camped on a, mountain for a week, and it makes you really, truly appreciate the things that you have. So maybe we all need to climb Kilimanjaro.
Maybe, and I think as well, we just need to get, and I say this as a man that sits in his office on a regular basis for umpteen hours a day, but I think we all just need to get out more and like, I'd say us, particularly the Western world, we're very materialized, we're very, want this, I want that, I need this, I need that, when actually, do you really? Like, I think as well, it's a hard one as well, because there's a lot of like stuff that we as disabled people, there's stuff that we buy that it's more of a it's more like a piece of equipment that we're going to use to support us, and I think that's the tricky bit. I think one of the things I do agree with is it's expensive being disabled. It's very expensive being disabled.
Yeah.
But no, I completely agree. Like I think with the environment thing, I think it's the whole thing of people can't. It's that whole argument of what is little old me going to be able to do in comparison to the umpteen amount of people that are on the M25 every day. I think it's really tricky. I think definitely
it's hard, isn't it?
I think there just needs to be more emphasis, on creating greener stuff. Like obviously we've seen a big uptake in the electric car thing and everything else, but they still haven't quite cracked the code with that, and that's why I think a lot of people aren't buying into it, is because the infrastructure is not there. So like people are like, well, I need to get from London to Birmingham, and most electric cars might struggle to do that depending on your driving. And that's
and also
that's the big thing.
And I don't know the complete thing around this, but it's actually the process into building the electric car as well kind of uses more bad energy than a regular car. So it's getting the battery, and it's not really very environmental. I don't know, but there definitely needs to be stronger innovations around, more environmental designs, and hopefully the future, that will happen, soon as time goes on.
Fingers crossed. I must admit, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think like it's going to provide so much value. I love the Kilimanjaro bit as well. I think as well, not many people talk, or I haven't spoken to anyone that talks of it really in depth. So it's been quite eye-opening to know what the journey was like. So thank you so much for coming on. I will, of course, link Rebecca's details below, all of her socials. If you want to go find her, message her, anything you guys want to do, I will link everything below. But thank you so much for coming on, Rebecca.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.